Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission is to take your stack of source material and hand you back the refined gold. Today, we are diving deep into the one application that unites pretty much every knowledge worker, from finance to marketing. I'm talking, of course, about the dreaded spreadsheet.
Ah, yes. I mean, it's the ultimate double-edged sword, isn't it? It's essential for analysis,
Mhm.
uh, but it's often responsible for the greatest office misery.
Exactly. And if you've ever felt like Excel is, I don't know, personally punishing you, this deep dive is built around a really surprising claim that might just change your life.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to argue that you don't actually have an Excel problem, you have a process problem.
Mm-hmm.
And Excel, that faithful tool, is just taking the blame for our collective bad
It's
habits.
the ultimate scapegoat, because it's tangible. Everyone assumes, oh, if I just knew one more advanced formula,
Mhm.
or if I could master macros, my life would be easier. But the source material we analyzed, it really forces us to zoom out. The issue isn't a lack of technical skills on your team. It's a fundamental lack of structure in the workflow itself.
So if you feel chronically weighed down by monthly reporting, or if, opening that one specific master file gives you a mild existential panic, this deep dive is for you. We're going to explore why focusing on structure is monumentally more important than just focusing on leveling up your technical skills.
That is such a critical distinction because mastering new skills only helps you execute a broken process a little bit faster. It doesn't eliminate the underlying risk or the frustration.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's identify the real source of all this frustration. We need to define the enemy. And the sources gave us this perfect, I think, very resonant cycle. Just ask yourself honestly, how often does your routine involve that high-touch repetition?
The repetitive high-touch process, that is what devours thousands of hours across organizations. It just sucks up budget and energy.
Hmm.
And the most time-consuming parts, they almost always boil down to the same dreadful, mind-numbing sequence.
We're talking about that whole copy.
Paste, look up, check, repeat.
Exactly, that
Yeah.
whole cycle.
That phrase, it probably causes heart rates to spike just hearing it because every single one of those steps,
Oh, absolutely.
it represents a potential point of human error. It's not just the repetition that's frustrating. It's the fact that you have to maintain this intense focus while performing a monotonous task because the stakes are so high.
And it's not just for, the one-off tasks. The most egregious examples are these recurring nightmares, right? It's that same monthly sales report
The budget consolidation,
or handling 10 different files that all need the exact same logic applied to them.
every single time. It's like data deja vu,
Yeah.
but painful
Uh.
and really high risk.
So where's the structural flaw in that?
Well, this is where we really define it. What often happens when teams try to consolidate data from, say, 5 different regions
Mhm.
is that the source material isn't normalized. So one regional report might use CA for California, another might use California State, maybe even Cali.
Ah, I see. And that ambiguity, that forces manual intervention every single time. The human has to basically act as the translator and the cleaner.
Precisely. The process doesn't handle the variability. The underlying structural issue is data inconsistency. When you are forced to make that human judgment call, which column do I grab this month or how do I deal with this inconsistent naming, that means your structure is fundamentally flawed.
And what's so fascinating here is that, the sources are confirming this central theme. It's not that Excel wasted your time because you didn't know VLOOKUP. Excel wasted your time because your workflow was designed for maximum human effort and minimal consistency.
We're misdiagnosing the illness. We think we need better formulas, but really the core issue is structural stability. Most teams don't actually lack the necessary skills to do the calculation. They lack a standardized, codified structure for how the data is prepared for that calculation.
Right. If the method of execution changes slightly every time a new person touches it.
Or even if the same person does it a month later, you have instability, not a lack of expertise.
Exactly. If the input file structure is different every single time, or if you have to manually make 40 individual decisions about cleaning and filtering data before you can even hit refresh on a pivot table, that is a glaring process problem. And those 40 decisions, they're clearly not free.
Not at all. And that, I think, shifts our focus to Section 2, the cost of manual workflows. Because this isn't just about wasted hours. There's a very real, emotional, and financial tax being paid here.
That emotional tax, we call that the stress multiplier. When a process is inherently flawed, when it relies entirely on flawless human execution day after day, the stress levels just skyrocket. People aren't worried about the calculation being wrong. They're worried about that one instance where they blinked and missed the miskeyed data point in column G.
And think about the consequence of that flaw, the rework trap our sources highlight. One small, seemingly innocuous mistake, a misplaced zero, a missed filter, a transposed column. It can cascade and lead to hours, sometimes even days of rework. And it's not just the 5 minutes to fix the error itself. It's that agonizing process of having to track down where that error even came from in the first place.
I think anyone listening who has had to chase down a decimal point error at 11 p.m. on a Friday, or had to tell their boss that a crucial number reported yesterday was off by 20%, they can deeply relate to that rework trap. It's not just hours lost, it's weekends lost, and frankly, confidence eroded.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of work, where the human brain is used primarily as a checking mechanism or a data router, it's exhausting. It fundamentally shifts the focus away from analysis and strategic insight, the actual value add, and puts it all onto data sanitation and manual validation.
Which is why this whole structural conversation is so vital. We are deliberately stepping away from the specifics of Excel formulas, like when to use index MATCH versus XLCUP, and focusing purely on optimizing the process itself. The goal is to make the final output reliable and dramatically less nerve-wracking to produce.
And if you eliminate the need for continuous manual checks because the structured automated logic guarantees accuracy, you eliminate the stress. It's a direct correlation. You stop using the human analyst as an error catcher, and you start leveraging their cognitive abilities for what they're actually paid to do.
Critical thinking, scenario planning, offering strategic insights.
Exactly.
This elimination of unnecessary cognitive load leads us directly to Section 3, which should be the real aha moment for you listening. We need to look at the transformative contrast that process optimization delivers. Our source material gave us this powerful, real-world example of what happens when you move from manual chaos to repeatable structure.
This contrast, it really quantifies the benefits beyond just saying, oh, it's faster. It provides context for the profound resource shift that happens.
So let's look at the before automation scenario. This wasn't some small side project. This was a critical, recurring, monthly financial consolidation. The manual effort required 2 experienced people, and it took 1 full week of effort. That's 80 man-hours, essentially, every single month.
And that week was always high tension. It relied on continuous, exhausting manual checks across multiple linked spreadsheets. And because it was subject to human variance, it resulted in high stress and often delayed final output. The team was effectively removed from higher value work for a quarter of their working month just to push numbers around.
And the high risk meant that strategic decisions based on this critical data were always made at least a week later than they should have been. The process wasn't just slow, it was actively delaying the business.
Right. Now, compare that to the after automation scenario. The efficiency gain is staggering, but the quality gain, that's the real story. The process now required only 1 person to monitor and execute.
Just 1.
And it took just half a day.
From a full week down to 4 hours.
That is the scale of the time reduction we're talking about. And crucially, the system leveraged repeatable, tested, and audited logic. It wasn't subject to the pressures of an analyst having a bad day. It produced calm, predictable results that were trusted immediately.
That shift from 1 week for 2 people to half a day for 1 person, that's often what separates a burnt-out team from a highly effective strategic one. The key takeaway for you, the listener here, is that you're moving from high-risk manual labor, where mistakes are baked into the model, to reliable, predictable knowledge work.
The cost of labor and the risk of error just drop simultaneously. And think about the human capital aspect you touched on. That 1 person, instead of spending a week grinding through data manipulation, is now spending half a day running the script and then 4.5 days actually analyzing the results, building predictive models, creating strategic recommendations. That's true value creation.
It's an internal intellectual reallocation. And that takes us to Section 4, where we reframe the value proposition of automation entirely. Because most people assume automation is purely about finishing faster, but our sources strongly challenge that conventional view.
Right. If it's not just speed, what is the true higher value benefit of getting this process right? The answer is cognitive and strategic. It's about generating space for higher quality work and, honestly, greater peace of mind.
But isn't there a risk that if we automate everything, analysts lose that foundational understanding of the data? Where's the balance?
That's a crucial question. The source material suggests that the balance comes from automating the repetitive execution, not the design or audit phases. The analyst still needs to understand the logic, but they shouldn't have to perform the mechanical steps repeatedly. The true value we identified focuses on three key benefits, and none of them are simple speed metrics.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, significantly fewer decisions needed during the execution process. If the workflow is structured correctly, the human operator doesn't have to decide which file encoding to use or how to clean this column this time. The logic handles it.
Okay.
Second, fewer mistakes introduced into the data. This is simple. Machines don't get tired or make typos.
Makes sense. And the third?
Third, and maybe most importantly, significantly more mental clarity for the people involved. It moves the operator out of the weeds of validation and into the realm of interpretation. That cognitive bandwidth is what you're really buying when you automate a bad process.
That mental clarity benefit is enormous. I can just imagine the relief on that team that went from a week of high-stress manual work to 4 hours of running a script.
Absolutely. The job of the analyst is not to copy and paste. It's to analyze the business problem. And what experts do when they come in to help teams isn't always about, teaching advanced Python or some external scripting. Often, the most powerful structural fix uses tools already within the Microsoft ecosystem.
Oh, that's key.
Yeah.
So when we talk about codified logic, are we always talking about learning brand new programming languages? Or can this happen closer to home for an Excel user?
Often it happens much closer to home. We're talking about taking that existing, often complex decision-making logic that lives inside someone's head and turning it into something reusable, like a robust data model built with Power Query, or even structured, reliable VBA scripts. These tools let you ingest those inconsistent files, normalize them, and apply the exact same rules every single time without a manual touch.
So instead of manually linking 5 files with VLOOKUPs that break when a row is added, you build a structured Power Query workflow that basically says, ingest these 3 files, remove the null values, standardize the state names, and output the result.
Exactly. The process itself becomes the single source of truth, not the individual person running the report. The fixes professional guides apply start with removing that repetitive copy-paste work and establishing processes that ensure reports run the same way every time.
So the goal is definitively making sure Excel works for people, not the other way around, where people are constantly catering to the spreadsheet's needs.
We have to move past this archaic belief that high-touch effort equals high quality. In the modern data landscape, high-touch effort almost always equals high risk and low clarity. Automation flips that script. It demands structure up front in exchange for reliability and predictability forever after.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. Let's synthesize these insights and make sure our listener knows exactly what they should do next.
The core lesson, to restate it clearly, is that if your data work in Excel feels heavy, your process probably is heavy. The perceived difficulty or weight of working with spreadsheets is almost always a reflection of an underlying heavy, unstructured process that just relies on human perfection.
Right. So the action item for you, the learner, is to evaluate your own daily tasks. Don't look for a new function, look for repetition. Where are you spending time repeatedly copying, pasting, looking up, and checking? That is the immediate flashing red light telling you where your process problem lives.
It's about shifting your attention from the contents of the individual cell to the connection points between the files and the steps you perform. That is where the structural flaw is hiding.
And we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Since the core issue we identified today is a fundamental lack of structure, forcing all these endless human decisions, the most valuable step you can take right now isn't learning a new formula.
No. The most valuable step is to take your most painful, repetitive report and just map out the beginning of that process. Focus on the 3 to 5 places where you repeatedly use that copy-paste lookup cycle. Those are your immediate highest value targets for automation and for structure.
The goal should be to design a workflow that requires fewer decisions from the human operator, which leads to less work and less stress. Start charting that chaos, expose the mechanical bottlenecks, and the path to calm, predictable, high-value work will become clear.
Map your process, find your peace.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.